Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Talking Business with Chad and Mike. I'm Chad Eves here with my co-host, Michael Gansel, and he is going to introduce our guest today, Evan Mestman.
Hi, Chad. Hi, Evan, and hello to our audience. Chad, we haven't done this in a while, so we're getting back in the groove, right? So here we go. Evan,
Summer's ending.
summer is ending. So I'd love to introduce everyone to Evan Mestman, and I'm going to read some of your bio, and I hope I'll be quick because it's a long bio, but I kind of shortened it down. So Evan Mestman started his career in nutrition with a passion for knowledge and motivation to help those who struggle with being their best mentally, physically, and spiritually. So after taking his first nutrition class in college, we won't tell people how long ago that was, Evan, it resonated to the point of becoming his pivotal moment, and his career path was set. He's worked in hospital ICUs with very critical patients. He's seen their fears and their vulnerabilities, and he realized that having the right attitude was half the battle. So he started studying psychology of behavior and change, and you actually developed your first nutrition program way back, called it Appetite and Attitudes. So you've been a diabetes educator, teaching nutrition and disease, nutrition and performance, and you've spent many years climbing that corporate ladder. And you went from sales to management to leadership, and you learned firsthand how easy it is to leave your health on the bottom rung. I guess you learned that on a personal level. And now you're taking all those years of experience and sharing it with your passion to thrive, not just survive, through your business, ProAttitudes coaching and consulting. So we usually start off, and that's really pretty. That's a long time, and but at least you've really been on this path for quite some time. So I would imagine you know quite a bit about it, and then that's why we're here and we want to listen to it. But we usually start with an icebreaker. So I never know what Chad's going to ask. So here we go.
Yes, it's a mystery. Okay. Which do you prefer, sunrise or sunset, and why?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm grateful for you having me on the podcast. I will tell you that I love sunsets, but my favorite is a sunrise because very few people really get up to watch a sunrise. And I love early morning. I'm up every day at 5 o'clock. And there's something special about waking up and there's nothing else to do except my self-care. And that's what I usually encourage other people to do, is to get up early because you have no excuses at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you got a sunrise waiting for you.
It's funny. I have a friend who writes a newsletter called "Too Early to Call," and that's because he gets up at 5 a.m. and that's when he starts to write. So, but yes, and I remember those days when I used to wake up at 5 a.m. And that quietness is remarkable. It really is, and just that time frame. The time I wake up.
So what about now, Mike? Which is your favorite?
Sunrise. No, I'm sorry, sunset.
So,
I happen to live on the river. I don't live on the river, but I live near the river. So I face the Hudson, and I see some spectacular sunsets all the time. But so if I had a choice, sunset versus sunrise. But I do really love waking up as early as possible when I can.
yeah, I'm a sunrise person too, Evan. I get up like 4:35, every day. So I blame the U.S. Navy for being behind that behavior, to be quite honest. But there is something being, said to being up early and it being quiet. If it's in the summer here in Chicago or in the fall, I love sitting outside with a cup of coffee, waiting for the sun to come up. In the winter, I'll be sitting inside. But there is something about that, at least for me, it's the feeling of that blank slate. It's that opportunity, it's that new day.
Exactly. It's knowing that no matter whether the sun comes up or down, no matter how great or bad that day is, typically you're going to reflect on it when it's a bad day. When that sun goes down, it's a really great way to reset and reframe, going, hey, tomorrow's another day.
So let's getting past sunrise and sunset. We could sing that song too, but
not me.
Me either. So why do you do what you do? What like why?
So my nickname was Heavy Evie when I was a kid.
Really?
And I was just bullied. Used to walk into homeroom every day, and Danny McCarthy would say, "Here's Heavy Evie," and it really beat me up inside in my head. And I make a muscle, nothing happened. It was just I was a sickly kid, and I looked at my life back then and felt powerless. Just thought that's what it was going to be, and just flipped in my brain one day that said, "Hey, there's nobody here to save me." I looked in the mirror and I said, "You've got to take this on." And I started to just change my habits one at a time. And just these ordinary, simple changes, really simple things, led to a transformation over a summer. And I literally came back to school the next year, and everybody they didn't recognize me. So it was all of a sudden like, who is that kid? Which was great. It was great revenge that way too, because I got the looks from the girls that they weren't looking at me before. It was really fascinating too. But doing a reverse engineer of that I've been like reverse engineering it ever since, because I know that the secret is not about going on a diet or going on an exercise program or taking a special pill or there's nothing out there that's magical except for, to me, the neural pathways in our brain. And if we can reprogram those neural pathways, I think that we can really transform everybody's health in the United States. We are right now dealing with a tremendous epidemic where nearly 80% of Americans are are overweight or obese. Nearly over 50% have diabetes or are pre-diabetes, have that. And half of the ones that have diabetes do not even know they have it. We are right now driving in a car that's literally feet from the edge of the cliff for our healthcare system. And I don't even want to call it a healthcare system. I think it's a sick care system. Things have got to change when so few people in this country are considered ideal health. And that is the real why I do this. And I pivoted into corporate America. So the reason why I really like to work with leaders and business owners, because when I worked in leadership, that was probably the loneliest place to be. You've got to project this image of confidence and just knowing how to fix everything. And it's really not the way to manage things or lead people. You need to learn how to be more vulnerable, and you need to learn how to collaborate and ask for help. And so many people in corporate America are autocratic. It's like, you do it my way or no way. And I've just really have this passion to really help other people the way I've helped myself. And I went to school. It's not like I just did it myself. I went to school. I got my master's in clinical nutrition. I was a personal trainer, certified personal trainer. I actually ran a health club, and I was a manager in a health club while I was going for my master's, because I'm just one of those guys that I had plenty of free time. So why not work 55 hours a week while you're getting your master's? And it gave me a perspective of learning pathophysiology, the biochemistry, the psychology of health. And what I learned is that we don't really know. It's a relatively new science. And what I found is that the healthcare system today is so big on treating symptoms, and they don't really understand the underlying reason that we have all these chronic diseases that everybody wants to specialize for. But really, the problem is the root cause. And it's our diet, our lack of exercise, our exposure to the insults in our whether it's medication or whether it's the microplastics or it's all the chemicals that are available now. There's so many things that are different than they were 100, 125 years ago. You never heard of obesity. I mean, most people were malnourished. Most people were normal weight. Just go to Disney World, though, and tell me. I had somebody I was doing a networking call with, and they said, I didn't realize until I went, and he was from Europe. Until I went to Disney World. Wow, Americans are really big. And
so
you got to do something about that. And that's why I do this.
So who are the typical people who come and need your help?
Well, my focus is on business owners and leaders. I have estate planners, I have VPs of finance, I have CPAs, I've got CEOs, so many different types of business owners and leaders, but they tend to be really challenging. They typically have a very strong voice up here that says, I don't need this. But the problem is that they're afraid of change. They're really overwhelmed with managing things and putting all the fires out and leading people, and they're not enjoying the little things in life. So they're going towards burnout. And that is, to me, that's a telltale sign. What's the first thing to go? Well, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat or cook or, take better care of myself. That's the first thing to go. And those are it's a majority of people out there, but I love working with the leaders and their teams.
So I have a question for you, Evan. So I do coaching work with people in communication and leadership world. And one of the things that people seem to want to leap past is, to make change, whether you're learning a skill, how to do something different, how to do something better. A lot of times it's doing little things consistently.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, and there's a lot of resistance to that. It's like people, they just want to be able to, download judo. They know judo, like in the Matrix or something like that.
Yes. My favorite movie.
How do you address that? And when you're working with people, if you get that type of resistance to where they don't want to do the hard work, the little things, the consistent work, they just want they want that magic pill, which, is somewhat questionable. So how do you approach those kind of situations?
It's a great question. Everybody wants the magic pill. Everybody wants to just get there. Well, part of what I do is I really work with people on reframing. It's all about, again, I help people lose weight with their minds, not their mouth. That's my tagline. But I'm talking about the weight on their shoulder, not just around their middle. And when I hear resistance, what I tell them is, listen, there are 3 things I'm going to help you do: is lose weight with your mind, not your mouth. I'm going to help you be intentional with your health. But most importantly, I'm going to help you tame that inner critic. When you get resistance is information. Resistance is important. It's good. When you get resistance, it means you're in your, what I call the suck zone. You're pushing outside your comfort zone. You're in the discomfort zone. So that's a signal that you're learning. So that learning zone is a great place to be because it's not the comfort zone. Nothing ever good ever comes from a comfort zone. So that's a reframe right there. And that's one of the things that I work with my clients is on commitments and keeping them. Make commitments and keep them. It's a cornerstone of my program. I've created a commitment log. It's a daily mindfulness exercises and weekly commitments and then review. And that's an absolutely essential part of it. Now, why? Because you have to realize that change has to feel good. If it doesn't feel good, you're not going to do it. And most people will say, I want to go, let's say I want to exercise. For you, like from your health perspective, what is the one thing that you say you'd like to improve upon? Not that you're not in good shape or healthy, but is there one thing that you think, I've had resistance for this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exercise.
I think, yeah.
Okay, for exercise. So part of the challenge there is what is it about exercise that you say, hey, what's the lie you're hearing in your head saying, I need to do this or I can't do it? What's the actual resistance?
Time, perhaps.
I don't have the time. Great. What if it's also about, hey, I don't have the energy? People hit the snooze button in the morning. They don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:35. So part of this is a reframe. It's about, instead of living with that neural pathway that says, I'm too tired to wake up, because I'll go through the lies that their inner critic is telling them, because it's about their inner critic. The inner critic is an identity that exists. We have many layers to our identity that's created to protect us. and it's typically developed as a child or sometimes with trauma, but we all have it. Why? It's for survival. Our human brains need it for survival. And we develop with these neural pathways then that say, like my father said, it's my way or the wrong way. Now, you might not have had a father who said that. So I happen to have a perfectionist maestro in my head that says it's got to be perfect or it's not done.
Mm.
I also have another one that's called the harmony enthusiast because I want to avoid conflict. Why? Because as a child, when I hear that from, and your parents do the best they can, right? Nobody gives you a manual, says this is how you parent. But then the child who's left to have to think about that, they're going to blame themselves, which is what you do. And then they're going to rationalize it in the best way that they can. For me, and they won't trust their own feelings. The one thing that kind of really sunk this into my brain was when I was working in medical devices and I was in the hospital and I was in the burn unit, and I happened to work with a nurse, and there's this child crying out for their mom. And this child was just, I'm like, where's the kid's mom? And she's like, the kid's mom's not coming. I said, why not? Well, he had been burned over 50% of his body, 2nd and 3rd degree burns, because the mom wanted to teach him a lesson because he was playing with the stove and she poured the hot water all over him. Now, the child cannot accept that his mother is a monster. So what has he done? He doesn't trust his own feelings and he blames himself, thinking, I must be so terrible, I deserve that. Now, that's the extreme of this. And it still gives me goosebumps thinking back to that situation, realizing, whoa, this is pretty powerful stuff. How do you reprogram that? For him, that kid, he wouldn't survive if he hadn't done that. He'd lose his will to live, which is one of the reasons why I was there too, helping them with that, because he wasn't eating and he was failing. What about though when it's not quite so severe, like with my father, when he's saying, hey, it's your way, my way, or it's the wrong way. Part of this is reframing. You've got to learn how to look at what your head is, what you're hearing in your head, and become more familiar with, hey, let's have self-awareness here. It's about becoming aware of the lies that the inner critic is telling you. That's why I have an inner critic quiz. I help people determine who that voice is loudest in their head. And then from there, once you have that awareness, then it's a matter of, well, let's start working on cognitive restructuring, behavior modification, but also I think that it's about learning how to rethink and reframe that makes the best. The best tool that I work with is just having these conversations with people. So when you have resistance, I can turn that around and have people look at that's a good thing.
So for someone, so we both live in major metro areas, and in a lot of those places in the U.S. and around the world, people experience pretty long commute times.
Mm-hmm.
Used
to be me.
It gets even worse.
Used to be me. I used to 2 to 3 hours each way.
Yep. What would you suggest to someone to, like a first step they could take? Because it's so easy to fall into eating the bad food, the takeout food, the fast food, whatever else it is, the sugary drinks. What's kind of like a first step someone could take to break what they're doing currently to change that path for themselves?
Great question. First, they have to have, like you asked me, they have to have a why. They've got to be connected. Are you doing this for an outcome? Oh, I'm going to be going on vacation this summer and I want to look good in my bathing suit. That might get you started, but it's once you hit that beach and you start eating and drinking, it's all over. So there has to be a better connection there. So I don't ever say it's right or wrong. If that's going to get you started, great. But we have to go deeper. And then what I always tell people is to start with a tiny, tiny habit. So if it's exercise, people go, I don't have time to exercise. I used to get up and exercise before I would go to get in the car and drive to Brooklyn or Staten Island or Queens. I would start with 5 minutes. People go, 5 minutes is nothing. Well, we're starting with 5. If you can't give me 5, I can't help you. Everybody says yes. So I start with 5 and then add 1 minute every day until you get to a point where you go, I can't really provide any more time. And then what we do is we work on the habit. Let's create the habit first. I even have people get in the car and drive to the gym. And I said, you don't have to go in. Really? Yeah, just get in the habit every day, the same time for the week. First, we start with getting up at the same time every day. Mm-hmm. How many people get up based on when they're responsible for work? You get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I get up at 5 every day, regardless, except on the weekend, I might get up at 6. I give myself a little extra time. But I think it's really important that people understand we are creatures of habits, and that between stimulus and response, there is no space when it's a habit.
So what are the toughest habits that you encounter with the clients that you work with?
You know what? Every habit is unique to that person. But one client that I'm working with right now who is an estate planner and happens to travel around the country training other lawyers to become estate planners. When I met him, he was eating until he literally was stuffed. He could not stop until he was sick to his stomach. And he had terrible GERD, which is indigestion, terrible bowel symptoms, and besides being overweight, and he wasn't fitting into suits. He no longer does that anymore because he's not feeding the inner critic. The inner critic, he would come home from work like this, stressed, and he needed this. So we found an alternative.
Right. So what are some other habits that you find in the people that you work with? So one would be eating to excess. What are some other habits?
Alcohol, where they're drinking to the point where the calories as well as the consequences of the alcohol or drug use. I've had people who also can't commit to exercise. We started with very small commitment. One client came to me. She was a CPA, had a team, and she was 70 pounds overweight. And her blood sugars, she didn't share with me that she had a blood sugar issue, but she finally confided me 2 weeks in, said, I just came from the doctor. My blood sugar's in the 400s. Her A1C was 12.1. It's just a ridiculously high number. She's going to end up killing herself. Well, her numbers are normal. I saw her this morning. Her numbers are normal. She's now down several dress sizes. She's lost, of the 70 pounds, she's lost 50 of it. She still has, I'd say 20 to 30 more to go, but she's getting off medication. But initially, why did she come to me? She came to me because she wanted to look good in the dress for her daughter's wedding. So it's a great little motivator, but for her, she wouldn't exercise. Now she goes 6 days a week for 45 minutes to one of those HIIT classes, high intensity interval training. She completely transformed her body. She goes dancing twice a week with her husband, which is a great way to build that relationship with her. She's now closer with her husband than she ever was. I love it because when I work with somebody, I talk about making deposits, health deposits. And it's not just about what you eat. It's about generating energy, striving for excellence. It's about making connections and about seeking purpose, your physical, your mental, your emotional, spiritual needs. And they don't realize they're doing it, but eventually what happens is they're living the life they've always dreamed of. And that to me is why I do this. I love being able to help people get there.
You know, you touched on the energy aspect of it. And I can remember probably 15 years ago, so now maybe even 20, one of my mentors, he was in his early 60s, and we were talking one day, and he was like, you know, so much of it as you get older is about energy, is about having the energy. Because, you know, when you're younger, it's, even if you're abusing yourself with fast food or whatever else, you still have a capacity generally. And then as you get older, you start noticing like, okay, maybe I don't have the stamina. I don't, able to do those things that I used to expect myself to be able to do, to work, different things. When I started doing public speaking, one of my mentors was like, you got to take care of yourself, because like there's been more than one speaker that like does something, goes back to his hotel room or her hotel room. Generally, it's been guys that I've heard this about. They fall over dead. They have a heart attack or something like that. And, that's really what that advice that I got from him was really, for me, what started connecting the health with the performance aspect of it. I'd come out, growing up when I was in the Navy and other things, like being fit was required. But after that, and in the business world, that was like a connecting reason. It's like, okay, if you got to perform, you want to do well. And I don't think a lot of people have that realization or that awareness as they get older.
It depends on the age group that I'm dealing with, but also it depends on the paradigm of the person. For me, you go to the gym anytime you were at a meeting, nationally, we were traveling. There were plenty of business people that were there at 5 o'clock in the morning with me working out, so, and if I always was there, no matter whether it was jet lag or whatever, because you wake up and you go, I feel like I'm not going to get better. So I know that I will feel better though if I exercise. That's a different paradigm than most people go, oh, I got a crick in my neck or I'm tired. People just say, oh, I got to take better care of myself. And they sit on the couch and watch Netflix to take care of themselves. That's self-soothing and self-defeating. Part of it is, when I was 20, 30, I went into corporate America in late 30s, early 40s. My energy level went way down. I have more energy now than I ever had then. Now, at 50, I ran the New York City Marathon. Never thought I could do it. But now, like, I don't run marathons anymore, but I wanted to be able to do it for the right reason. It was for a why, for cancer therapy, and also for my sister who had just been diagnosed with cancer. So having a why is really important. But now, you're talking about energy level, and I'm jumping, and I have so much energy right now, and thinking at the age that I'm at now, in my early 60s, I'm loving it. It's not a function of age. It's a function of, what are you putting in the mouth? What are you doing to your body? How are you taking better care of yourself? What are you doing to manage stress? That's a big issue today. Everybody's boil level is so high. Anxiety and stress is so high. 100,000 people are dying every year from drug overdoses.
So if I might, so what's the one thing you believe that puts people over the edge to basically reach out to you? I think you said stress. You say that's it? What's that one thing that gets somebody off the couch and rings up Evan Mestman on the phone or sends him an email, something? What's that? Yeah, is there one or two or three things? What are they?
So when you wake up on a Sunday and you go, I can't enjoy my Sunday because I'm dreading going to work on Monday. That would be one reason. But they don't label it that way, but it's this underlying dread.
You used to call that the Sunday night blues.
Yes, Sunday night blues. They're falling asleep on a Zoom in the middle of the afternoon, just nodding off, right? Or nodding off as soon as they get home. They don't have that connection. They feel disconnected. They're feeling overwhelmed and anxious. But they're also looking in the mirror and they're not happy with what they see. And they know that they keep driving the car. They're going over the edge pretty quick. I mean, health is not priceless until you lose it. So most people will come to me when they've already had a wake-up call. They've been to the doctor. The doctor said, if you don't go see Evan, you're going to die. I've had several people come to me from that, but other people come to me because it's referral. I've got many business leaders who are living their best life now. And other people are like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? Like, oh, you got to talk to Evan. So it's, people look at it and go, I didn't think I could even live that way.
If someone reaches out to you, because we're going to obviously share your contact information here and all, what should they expect like from that first conversation?
Just getting to know you and see if I can help you. Bottom line is, I'm not there to sell. I'm there to help them understand what their problems are. First session it's complimentary for that reason, because it's an investment. It's not about going on a program. My method's called the B3 way. It's become, be strong, be grateful, which is why I'm the Chief Gratitude Officer. I really believe that people need to think from this perspective. If they're a caterpillar and they want to fly like a butterfly, they have to want to give up. They have to want to fly so badly they're willing to give up being the caterpillar. That's number one. So I'll talk to them about that. I'll talk to them about like where they are now, and I will help them identify where the challenges are. I have a lifestyle challenge assessment that makes it really easy. They just take the assessment. It's a lot of questions. It doesn't take very long to take, but it bubbles up 3 to 5 main issues that if we take care of those, everything else falls into place. And the inner critic quiz, which is literally a 10-minute quiz that everybody can take. It's a free quiz that's out there, and they can identify who their inner critic is. And I even have courses that are out there where they can learn how to tame that inner critic. 21-day inner critic challenge.
All right.
Oh, well, very interesting, hasn't it? What do you think? So I guess I just had a thought, and I was going to ask you that. So, in the world of sales, we talk about pain, which is an emotionally compelling reason to act or change. And the bottom line really comes down to is that when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, people change. And I think that that's apt for the types of people that are going to come to you. They have they have a compelling need to change, but somehow they're so comfortable with being where they are that they think but at some point when they realize that being where they are is so painful, certainly change becomes much more desirable than staying where they are. And I think that that's pretty much what I hear about what you're saying in terms of all the people that you work with. They've made that final decision and say, it's too painful to be where I am right now. I've got to seek something else.
And it's a good way of looking at it. But the thing that I will tell you is that pain is optional. I mean, the pain is necessary. Pain is nice. The suffering of not like avoiding dealing with this issue, that's optional. But people have been like the person I sat next to at a meeting at a dinner. It was a celebration, and he's complaining about his eating, and he's getting sick from it. He'd been suffering for this for 30 years, eating till he was stuffed. Right. 30 years. And now he doesn't do that anymore.
But the reality is he's comfortable with that. That goes back to but he really is. That goes back to your inner critic. That goes back to that inner critic. He actually feels, for whatever crazy reason, for every twisted reason, he is comfortable with that. He's made well, we could go on, and I'm sure we could have this discussion offline, because I'm not disagreeing with you. But what I'm saying is that he is comfortable with it until that point where he realizes that comfort is so overwhelming him, he's no longer comfortable with it.
Well, the comfort's temporary. When you go for the ice cream and the cookies at night, he's like, I'm the boss of me. His inner critic, we go through actually what his inner critic is saying. I'm the boss of me. I'm going to do what I want to do. But when you eat that, you put it in your mouth and you enjoy it. Great. That's immediate gratification. That immediate gratification monkey is enjoying themselves. But what about the rational self, right?
Yeah.
It's developing, and that's not necessarily in your conscious mind. What I do is I bring it to the surface. I help people to expose the inner critic. Like mine used to be 6 feet tall. I keep him on my shelf. He's now 8.5 inches. Here's my inner critic. And I develop their inner coach, which is why the Yoda is sitting up here. And part of that is by just like going to the gym to build the muscle, you need to do the 10,000 reps. And that's the attitude muscle is what I help people develop. And that requires work, but we have to make it feel good. You got to make it feel good. And that means you've got to live your life in forward motion and focus on what's just in front of you. So many people give up because they think about what they should do. They think about, I'll never get there, or I'll never look like that, or that it's all external. What we do is we focus on the internal. But I know we're running out of time. I could go on forever on this.
No, I think it's really insightful, Evan, and thank you for being here with us today, because it's one of those things where maybe it's simple, but just because something is simple isn't easy.
It's not
And
easy.
how many layers are there to get to it? And I think that's where working with someone, an expert in their field, such as yourself in this, like you said, is getting over that stubbornness or whatever it might be to, acknowledge if you're not only going to make the progress, you're going to make the progress more effectively by working with someone that's in a position to help.
It's like a business. Their business is not about the outcome. It's about the processes, the systems that they have. And we need to create a system in their life, a lifestyle that they can wake up every day and go, I'm embracing and loving my life versus waiting for that outcome. Outcomes will happen if you focus on a really great system.
Awesome.
And that's what I help.
Well, that's a great to end on, don't you think?
What's that?
I think so.
I said that was a great note to end on. So why don't you give us a quick wrap, Chad, and
great way to get back on track after the summer break. Without your health, you don't have much else really when it gets down to it. So Evan, thank you very much for sharing your perspective and your expert on this. Mike and I will be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode. We will be sharing Evan's contact information. If you got questions, like he said, the first conversation is complimentary. Take advantage of it. You never know where that could lead you and what information you could walk away with. Evan, thank you very much again for joining us.